just saw Michael Jordan lose to the Magic. Shaq, Penny went on to the NBA Finals. They didn't win. They got smacked by Akeem, like I said at the end of last episode. And
don't forget about Horace.
Oh yeah, he was carried off.
Oh,
he was carried off the court, right?
Like
that'll be on your screen.
Oh, I'm not bad.
What are you, Michael Jordan?
Yeah, I mean, I have to embellish.
You just have to be. I just have to become Michael Jordan. You have to like Shang Tsung your way into and morph your way into Michael Jordan.
See,
but Michael Jordan feels like he had more of a baseball body. If you ask him and Tim Grover, his trainer, he had more of a baseball body during the '95 season. And there's quotes during this summer after they lost where he tells people, if I had the full year, we definitely would have won the championship. I don't know if he ever says that in The Last Dance, but he was saying it in '95. Like the summer after they lost, he was like, if I just come back earlier, we would have won.
Yeah.
Right. So he feels like he's got to get into basketball shape. There's one problem. He was signed for the summer to play for the Toon Squad. And he had to go and do a movie called Space Jam, which is one of my favorite movies of all time. But he said,
I didn't even notice you were wearing the jersey.
Hey, this is the best jersey. The Toon Squad, Michael Jordan, special. Shit is fire.
Yeah.
Shit is absolute fire. But Michael Jordan told Warner Brothers, I'm not coming to do this movie unless you give me a basketball court that I can practice on or just a place to train. And I got to be able to train right there. Otherwise, it doesn't make much sense for me to do this movie and then go into next season and suck ass. Right?
Yeah.
So they build him this giant dome. Right? Let's see if I can get pictures of the dome. I think they're in this article. There we go.
Yeah.
They built him this. I used to work at a place that had one of these as like a tennis facility. It's where you play tennis. And they're really trippy. Have you ever been in one of these little air domes? I feel like they're only in certain places. So I don't know if you, maybe that's a thing that not many people have done. I don't know.
I'm not sure if I have.
But you walk in, you feel all the air suction. They said it costs $10,000 to air condition the place every week. $10,000 a week. Absurd, right?
And that's a lot of money in 1996.
It's a lot of money for me right now. I mean, it's probably not a lot of money in the grand scheme of things. I know what you're saying, but it's a lot. It's a lot of money.
Like
$10,000 a day for a whole summer, or a week for a whole summer. That's wild.
That is crazy.
But Space Jam, iconic classic, had to happen. I agree with Warner Brothers all the way. Make him the fucking court. He's the GOAT. Do what you got to do. Like, because that's how people are probably looking at it.
That ruined our environment. These kind of things. See, these stupid things ruined our environment. All right, let's keep going.
Ruined our environment.
Yeah.
We'll see. If you ask Reggie Miller, the players who went to this dome ruined the environment for the next few years. So hear me out. They have the dome. There's a court in it, and there's a full gym, right? And by gym, I mean basketball court. Or I said court, right? So full, and then like workout stuff for Tim Grover to just like do his mad science things.
Yeah.
And he would then have guys from, well, at first it was guys from UCLA that came to Warner Brothers camp because it was close. And they would play 5-on-5, like it says here, 5-on-5, first to 7 points, straight up, which I thought was interesting. All ones, call your own fouls. So they're playing 1983 North Carolina college basketball rules. All ones, call your own shit, right? First to 7. So threes are irrelevant. I wish I had known that before doing research into this, because why have Reggie Miller there? Why is he there?
It's still not hard for him to make 7 shots.
I know, but I was just thinking about all the guys who were shooting that were there, that were known for their shooting ability, but also they're in California. So Reggie's a local California guy. There's a bunch of guys that are here that live in California that came in. But it started with the college guys, and Chris Johnson, guard forward for UCLA. He was basically Jordan's point guard throughout the whole summer, as the story goes. And Reggie Miller was there. Patrick Ewing was there. Chris
Rodman went there too, right?
Rodman.
Yeah.
Saw his crazy hair in one of the videos. I have footage of it over here.
Yeah. And then it's naming all of the players that went, anyways.
But there were lots of guys there, and this is some of the only footage from it. There's very few.
Pardon the granular.
Look. Yeah, I said during the Dream Team thing that there were 2 games in Jordan's career, or 2 things like this in Jordan's career, where I don't know why nobody thought, oh, we should probably get a camera on this. And that was the Monte Carlo game and this. Or the Monte Carlo games, because I'm sure there was more than one practice.
Yeah.
But and the reason why I said why the NBA players would say that this was a stupid decision is I've heard Reggie Miller on more than one interview when he gets asked about this experience say, why the hell did we all go up there and help him get better? We basically said, here, Michael Jordan, here's more championships. Here's all our game. We're going to play our hardest with you. It's going to be the hardest games. And so now when it comes playoff time, you know what we're going to do. You're ready to go. Because they said in The Last Dance that he was taking notes on all these guys. And the guys on the Bulls were taking notes on all the guys that came into California.
Yeah. It's just fun, like, basketball competition shit, though. Like, I'm sure Reggie definitely wasn't thinking about that at all at that point.
Definitely not in the moment, I don't think. I don't think any of them were in the moment.
So I do have a question about this.
Yeah.
And I understand that it was drawn out a certain way, especially in The Last Dance. So this is just a contrarian thought. But I really do question this because of the outcome later on. So you have all these guys come, including Dennis Rodman,
right?
Who he has not signed with the Bulls yet.
Yeah, that's what I was about to look up, so I paused the video. I want to look up even better.
Nope, it was October 3rd.
Is that what it says? 95. October 3rd. Bulls acquire Rodman from Spurs in trade. So it's really like right before the beginning of the season.
Right? So
right
and
before.
This is my thing, and that's what I was expecting. So a lot of people look at Jordan a specific way, and I think the way it's drawn out is what kind of helps that process. But could Jordan have also been recruiting? Right?
I think it's a big, like what we see with LeBron that he does.
Exactly. Yeah. So a lot of people get, like, when we looked at it in NBA history, this always happens. Like, or at least over the last 20 years it has. Like LeBron, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade, that all happened because of the Olympics, right? They all played together in the Olympics. That kind of worked out that way. Yeah. Kevin Durant and the Warriors happened, I think, also in it was like the All-Star game, but it was something else. I can't remember. I think it was in Olympics too. And I know for sure 100% Kyrie Irving and KD also happened because of the Olympics.
Right.
So this happens where players they play together, they meet up, and then after a while they want to join each other. Like that happened with Shaq and Penny before Shaq and Penny became like big names. Like that happened with a lot of players in NBA history. And I think people just brush past this because they would never look at Michael Jordan as that guy who would go look for help. They always, you know what I mean? Like he never really seemed like that guy. And I really do feel like he used this to recruit. And he probably had conversations with Rodman. Because for them to say in The Last Dance, we we were reluctant on wanting to trade for Rodman because Pippen and Jordan's relationship or feelings towards him, right? But then why the hell do you invite him to uh, a summer training thing when you don't like him? That's like inviting Isaiah Thomas. Like, you know what I mean? Like
it's like this is where I'm because you hit me with like 4 different questions at once, and I wanted to answer them. But
no, I just wanted to put my point out there.
I agree with you, and it's not just Rodman. It's not just Rodman on this team that we've seen in Jordan's past. Ron Harper was on that Cavs team when Jordan hit the shot, and Jordan said that was his best defensive matchup. Like Harper guarded him the best. John Sally is a bad boy. Rodman is a bad boy. Wennington in The Last Dance, Jordan had talked to him and said, you know, we were talking about doing this in the early 90s, and now we're finally getting to get together. And he said to Wennington, hold on to the cape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure something to that effect. Maybe I'll be able to throw that in. But there's a lot of different guys on this team. Kukoc, we went over that in the Dream Team when they were talking about the Dream Team.
But that was more organizational. Like
No, I know what you're saying, but my point is these are all guys that Jordan has crossed paths with in a relatively significant way.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. He's collecting talent that he feels super comfortable with on the second run to say, I can trust you, you can trust me. The second thing that you said, the reason why no one mentions that with Jordan is because where most people like LeBron say, we need a playmaker, we need another scorer to help me out. Jordan never looked at it like that. He just said, we need more defense. All these guys are more defense. And I think that's why it's looked at like that, because no one looks at defense to that degree. Just people don't look at it like that. And I think that's why.
Had the other playmaker and scorer in Scottie Pippen, so that's why he never needed that.
Maybe so, but Scottie Pippen's only putting up. It's a different era too. They're not you can win if you have one main scorer if your defense is that fire. And as we're going to go through this season, we're going to see the defense is going to be
when you have the luxury of certain other things in this season that we'll go over.
Okay, so we are going into the regular season, and they lose 2 games in the beginning of the season I wanted to talk about before we do general season outlook. So in the schedule, they have 2 quick losses in the beginning. The first is to the Orlando Magic. This must have been a game that they took super serious, considering Shaq's not going to be playing in this game, right? If I get to, and the highlights will be on your screen, but Shaq's not going to play in this game, and Penny just fucking annihilates them. And this box score from this Magic team, very 2021. 9 for 20 from 3, right? Even that isn't that many threes, but still a ton for the era, right? 9 for 20 from 3. They win 94 to, what did that say? 94-88. And Penny, 36 points, 4 of 7 from downtown in a game that you got to imagine Jordan wanted. You know what I mean? First game out. And this is how the 72-10 team starts. The second team that they lose to are the Seattle Supersonics. And same thing, Jordan, 22 points on 19 shots. And these are the first 2 games are to these good teams that we're going to see later this season.
Yep.
Right? And these teams are also going to use that as motivation going into their matchups. But Kemp, 25 and 14 rebounds, shot over 70%, over 75%, 10 of 13 from the field. Gary Payton, 26 and 11. Like, just exactly what they want. You know?
Yeah.
Total, everything that they want, Supersonics basketball. After that point is where they really pick up steam. They have a 13-game win streak, and they have an 18-game win streak. Basically, back to back.
Yeah.
and they're 41-3 to start February.
Yeah.
40-3 to start February, but ridiculous. Considering usually when we see these teams, it's that hot start.
Yeah.
And that's not how this turns out. It's just like huge win streak, a chip, and then another massive win streak. But let's look at now we can look at the regular season. I just wanted to talk about that as we go to look at this 72-10, the best regular season team to that point ever.
Yeah.
Right?
And then especially, I know they came back from a lot of, they were down a bunch of times in a lot of these games where they were down double digits, 15 points, 18 points, and they were like known for coming back. It was very Warriors-esque.
Which is interesting because, like I said, the Warriors would do it from more of a let's create a couple of turnovers and come through more from a 3-point shooting barrage of offense. Whereas the Bulls were like, we're going to stop you from scoring 15 points this quarter.
Yeah. And
that's it.
I remember learning in this legacy breakdown that one of the reasons the Bulls were able to accomplish this was because of the expansion, right? So my biggest thing about this, and what frustrates me a little when like the new era of basketball, I feel like they tend to like create these narratives and then make it seem like the older era never had anything like this, where Kevin Durant joins the Warriors and they become a dominant team, right?
Yeah.
And they make it seem like Michael Jordan would have never done that. All these other players would have never done that. And that's why I mentioned the Rodman thing, because even when it's from a defensive aspect, Rodman was one of the best defensive players in the league.
But he was very frowned upon at the time. When he left San Antonio, it wasn't on good, like...
Yeah, no, I know. I definitely understand that. But I feel like it's more...
You know what the comparison is? More than Kevin Durant? It's more like Randy Moss when he went to the Patriots than Kevin Durant when he went to the Warriors.
Yeah, exactly.
Randy Moss was...
I'm not saying... Because I would never say Dennis Rodman is KD level in terms of superstar. I wouldn't say that.
I would never say he's Randy Moss. But what I'm saying is Randy Moss, when he was on the Raiders, was as frowned upon as Rodman was when he was on the Spurs. I think that's a fair analogy.
And I see what you're saying. Yeah,
and he's trusted by Brady and what do you call it? Rodman was trusted by MJ.
Yeah, but I just feel like there's no way MJ didn't know what Rodman was at that point, like how good he was.
Yeah, like you said, from the Space Jam game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm part of that recruiting process is, all right, let me see how these players are playing. He looks at Rodman and he's like, you're still great at defense. You're still a great rebounder. You're exactly what we need. We just lost what's this guy? Horace Grant is no longer with us, which was a core piece of our three-peat last time. Like, we need a guy like you.
We're not going to get through the Eastern Conference without defeating big men.
Yeah, exactly. Because in this, we'll go over it, but in this playoff run, they have to face two dominant big men of this era. So looking at that, like, I don't care what the hell he says. There's no way in hell he didn't go to Phil and say, hey, this guy's still good. Try to get him. We need him.
Yeah, for sure. And, Phil always talks about how he and Dennis were able to connect on, their own levels.
Yeah. And
that
I just
helped the season, progress through as well. But continue, sorry.
Everybody talks about Jordan in this high manner, as he should, because I really do think he's the greatest player of all time. But we can't act like these guys aren't human. He wanted to keep winning. He knew that with the team that he had in the 95 season, there was no way that he was going to be able to win a championship.
There were a few people in the Last Dance documentary when they were interviewed that had said, or if they hadn't said it, it's something that's come up in the last 20 years, that Jordan looked at the landscape of the diluted, NBA and said, I could sneak in some more rings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we'll talk about how this season is going to bring a lot of vindication to him. And I think it's what pushes him to go forward to get those next couple of rings. Once he knows he can actually do it, then it's about just toppling over people. But to your point with the diluted league, we looked at the early 90s, late 80s. I forget exactly which year it was, but then the 76ers had 36 wins, and they were the last, second to last place team in the Eastern Conference.
Yep.
And now you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 teams in the East that are under that 36 win total.
Yep.
And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 10 teams total, right? No, yeah, 10 teams total that are above. Always got to check my math. That are under that win total, which makes people feel like the league is diluted and not as competitive because Jordan can go into Vancouver and just stomp them, easy victory, walk out the door.
Yeah.
That is the criticism, in my opinion, of this season as we've gotten further away from it now that it was almost 20 years ago. I think there's a lot of people that criticize that more than anything, which is Jordan faced a lot of fucking terrible teams in this era because a lot of organizations suck. They didn't know what they were doing from a GM perspective.
Yeah. And then not to mention, there were also, like, look at the teams who thrived. Like, the Utah Jazz have been a middle-of-the-pack team this whole decade.
Yeah.
And then they suddenly become a top 3 team. The next 2 years, they go to the NBA Finals.
Right.
Like, and it's not like your superstars are only getting older. This is towards the end of John Stockton and Malone's prime.
It's a transitional era. This late 90s. We're transitioning to Shaq, Kobe, Duncan, KG, but they're not ready yet.
Yeah,
exactly. Most of them haven't even been drafted yet.
Yeah.
So, and we're getting to the tail end, like you said, of MJ, Barkley, Ewing, basically the guys on the dream team. The guy outside of Bird and Magic, the guys on the dream team that we had looked at that point. Those guys are hitting the tail end of their primes for sure. Yeah. And that is creating this weird, and you can see it with the all NBA teams. If we look at that, so obviously at center, it's stacked. Yeah. David, Akeem, and Shaq as your third team center. Then you got, like we said, Karl Malone, Grant Hill, who's only going to have this prime that's about this long, right? And he's just coming into the league. Barkley, tail end of his prime. This is exactly what we're talking about. Scottie Pippen with Michael Jordan on the 72-win team. Then Kemp getting to the tail end of his prime. Juwan Howard, he's okay, right? He's a guy who's on the Fab Five, and he was always okay in the league. Penny Hardaway, Gary Payton in the second guard spot. They're just putting them in by wins, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And it's also, from a statistical standpoint, it's hard to gauge how great certain guys are. Like Akeem Olajuwon is a stat sheet stuffer. He's got 27, 11, 3 blocks, 2 steals.
Yeah.
But Gary Payton, he's not necessarily a 20 and 10 guy. Like, he's not like Stockton where he's getting you that insane, but he's the best defensive guard of the era.
Yeah, which in a very defensive era, which matters a lot.
True. Which was the other thing I was going to point out when we look at when we look at the NBA as a whole, because the teams that are at the top are at the bottom of the points allowed list, right? Utah, 55 wins, right? Seattle, 64 wins. On the other side, the Bulls, who have 72 wins, are in that top 3. Cleveland, playoff team. So it's, as you allude to, extremely defensive in this era. Slow pace, arguably boring basketball. Like, I think if somebody who just started watching the NBA in the last 5 years tried to watch like a classic Jordan game from the second three-peat, I think they might be not entertained throughout the whole thing.
Yeah, because I remember during the pandemic, I kind of went through the whole 90s Bulls run.
Right.
And it was very, slow pace, boring basketball. It was only fun to watch Michael Jordan score, at points, and it was just like it was more. You could tell it's more nostalgia than anything that anybody would be watching it, not because they want to watch fun basketball. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
What were you
obvious.
say, Lindsay?
Like a Steph Curry or Trae Young fan would probably really hate it.
Oh yeah, for
God,
sure.
like that, and that's the other thing. That's the other thing. It's just this is why I don't know if this team could survive in an era like now where 105 points a game scored is like you're the best defensive team in the league at that. Yeah. You're one of the best defense. Like you can't just have one guy score in this era in this year.
Yeah. It's funny because who was somebody in the NBA Finals just recently was saying, just trying like they were talking about defense and how they were trying to keep the team from scoring 100 to 105 points. Like that's their goal. Keep them at 100, 105 points. Like that's a really good scoring team in this era.
Yeah, exactly correct.
That was going back to your one guy being able to score. I think that's what makes this is like the perfect era for Jordan, where he was an efficient scoring machine that he scored anywhere between 35 to 40% of his team's points, and it was able to get him to win. But now, because you have so many superstars, way more efficiency with the 3-point shot, like you can't rely on just one guy winning you a whole team, a whole championship. Like it's not possible.
Not to mention they let zone it now, like in this era.
And then way more a lot of the rules changed, like the hand checking and all this other stuff. That's gone after the early 2000s.
Yeah, I think that unless you're assuming that Jordan's going to just up his scoring and the rest of their team is just going to magically be better at scoring, because that's the other thing. The league just has more skilled guys now. The league has guys that, like, their third guy is Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman's not scoring 10 points a game if his life depended on it at this stage of the game. Even if he could get 20 rebounds maybe in the faster pace, but he's just not a scorer. And you need a third guy to get you stuff in 2021. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, so third guy definitely has
perfect era.
Yeah, I think that's why people hold Jordan to a pedestal, because now they're not taking into consideration the difference in eras, and I think that's why we tend to talk about how you can't really compare eras anymore, because the game has evolved so much over time that now one guy can't win you a championship. Where in the 90s, one guy, for the most part, could win you a championship, even though, like...
Let's be specific when you say that. When you say one guy can get you a championship, what you're saying is one guy can carry 40% of the scoring and get you a championship.
Exactly.
But really, it's only MJ that's doing that. Because other guys, like we're talking Bird, McHale was right there with him from a scoring perspective, especially when they were in their heyday together. Bird with the MVPs and McHale right there getting over 20 points a game, shooting efficient, same thing. Jordan's the only guy who's he has a big three, as in 3 All-Famers, if you include him, Jordan, Rodman, and Pippen. He's the only guy that has 2 guys that are definitively not known for offense. And that's what gets him over the hump, because people ride scoring so hard when they decide who the greatest player in the league is, because the league has always been and will always be about buckets, says the great Bill Russell. But that's the most impressive part. It's not that he's the guy who did it by himself to get to a championship, because I don't think that's true. I think he's...
No, you're right. Yeah, 100%. What you're saying is true.
The most impressive thing about this Jordan run is that this crap worked for a decade. Like, it's insane that no one beat Michael Jordan. That's what makes him the greatest, is if you put anybody else in his spot, I don't think they come away with this many championships, just because other guys need different things. But this team was built around him, at the perfect time in the perfect way
Mhm.
and just builds that fucking insane legacy and makes you feel like when you're watching it that Jordan's just carrying them.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thing I've realized the most as we've gone through this era is it's not that he did this by himself. It's that the way they built the team, they forced it so that if he didn't score 30, they were fucked.
Yeah. I mean, the only team that you can kind of see that with a little bit is that, and it's to a very short extent because Clay was there, but that 2016 Warriors, the way they build around Steph in that
Right.
sense, very similarly, but still you got Clay that can at any point explode, and he averaged. I mean, he averaged only like 20, 21, whatever a game, but still, like I that's the only thing that you could kind of compare a guy to that. But
this is the other thing.
1 year,
two teams shooting is a lot more up in the air. I mean, even now it's way less up in the air than it was in like '96. But when you could, I just think you can guarantee playing hard defense like that, especially in this era, more than you can guarantee a 3-pointer going in as much as the Warriors did. And that's because they had a team of 3-point shooters. Just like this team in Chicago was a team of defenders, which is just insane. Yeah. And I don't think we've seen a better defensive starting five at any point in NBA history. Michael Jordan, Dennis Rodman, Scottie Pippen, all first-team defense. Ron Harper, insane defender. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know for sure he's at the top. He wasn't in it?
No, he was. I think he was one of the. He wasn't a first team all defense, but I
wonder if he was a second team.
And as you're looking through this, I feel like one thing you notice through a lot of these great teams or whatever, a lot of the times you'll see either that player wins MVP, whoever won the championship, or you'll have like someone who's sixth man of the year.
Yeah.
Someone's defensive player. One of those things that shows like, all right, he did great during the regular season to get to this point to help you win it. They had like all of that shit. You had three guys in the all defensive first team,
which is wild. That in itself is absurd.
Yeah, and then you had MJ obviously winning MVP. You had Kukoc being sixth man of the year. Like they had it all. Like
this is kind of something I was alluding to when we were talking about 95, and something that's interesting. When Kukoc comes in the game for them, their pace changes. But when it's this starting five, the pace is like grit, grind. The only there is no comparison in today's NBA for how slow this team gets.
Yeah, but you can't. Yeah, I mean, but it's because that was what worked in that era.
Oh no, I'm not disagreeing with that, but I always try to put today's comparison to what we were seeing then, and I can't do it. There is no team nearly to the level of defense.
A sort of paltry comparison could be maybe the Grindhouse team in Memphis, but like
it's so funny you said that because that's literally the only team I could think of off the top of my head. I was about to say them, but then I was like, that's not even that close. It's only because that's the only team in the last 15 years that was like
say 10, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, probably closer to 10. You're right because I think
because you got the Detroit those 04 Pistons
and the Lakers and Celtics in the later
end of the years, yeah,
definitely so
very deep, yeah.
But this team, the fact that they were able to succeed on the level they did playing defense is why many consider them the best team ever.
Yeah. Do you think Rodman really pushed that aspect of them and made them? Because like think about it, they didn't play Detroit style basketball. Obviously,
no.
They were not physical in that sense. They were just great defenders. But do you think Jordan looking at it like, okay, we could bring this guy in, we'll be anchors on defense now, that's why Jordan's stats kind of dip in this three-peat era Like he still gets his 30, but after this he doesn't get 30 again.
Right.
And at least not in the regular season. The playoffs, he maintains his 30 points.
Yeah, and it's also the pace.
Yeah, plummets
further south. The pace is such a huge dictator of stats.
He's not far from 30 though. Like next season, he's 29.6.
Yeah.
On the following season, he's at 28.7, so like 29. So I mean, he's not far from 30.
And he's winning those scoring titles, right?
But he was like, when he was at his peak, it was no doubt about it, and he was efficient as hell doing it. Like he wasn't that. You see in the last three-peat versus the first three-peat, there's a huge difference in efficiency.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing.
It's harder for him to do it, and I think it's because he's playing significantly more defense, or at least he's because he has to exert himself defensively to keep this team, like to maintain their greatness and dominance.
Right.
I think that it weighed on him a little bit offensively.
Yeah. I definitely think it's a combination of that and the pace, because I think if the pace was the level it was even at this first three-peat and the late 80s, I think you would still see him get to that 30 points a game.
Could we look at their pace for the last 6 championships?
Their pace is 20th of 29 is 91.1.
Yep.
For this season. If we go back 2 years to this.
No, it's not that one. It's the next year.
Next year? Okay.
Yeah.
3 years. Pace 92.5 is a little faster, but still dead last in the NBA for pace.
Yeah.
Because they're trying to do defense the whole time. They're second in opponent points per game. But look, second in opponent's points per game is up to 99 points. We weren't seeing that in this last part of the.
That also is because of the diluted teams as well.
Right. I'm not disagreeing with that. Pace 94.4 and 91.92. It's going to keep going up. 95.6 in the first ring. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. The pace, it's. I'm not saying it's drastic, but it makes a difference when you're talking about every single time. Yeah. Jordan's running half-court offense all the time.
Yeah,
all the time. But
in the second half, the second three-peat.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Wait, and I'm sure even in the playoffs during the first three-peat, because as we know, it slows down.
Yeah. Yep.
But where's that MVP? I feel like the MVP. I'm surprised this wasn't unanimous. But Jordan's going to come away with this one. This is his 4th? Yeah, this is the 4th one.
Yeah.
Obviously, as we just talked about, leads the league in scoring. Still over that 2.2. This is also the last season he's going to get over 2 steals. Fun fact.
It's crazy to look at it. And so he won in both three-peats. He won two MVPs in both three-peats. And I find that very interesting. Like, he clearly at least looked like he was the best player in the world in both of those three-peats. No matter what, like to look at that, to cut your career short for like a year and a half, and then just come back and be able to do that, like that's the type of things that make him so legendary. Like all these stories, like throughout all of these seasons, we went through all of these stories that he had, and little shit that like would be super great for most players, and he just has like a book full of them.
So I've talked about Michael Jordan and Mike Tyson a few times during this Legacy Breakdown. And part of what made a guy like Mike Tyson so legendary is he went to jail, right? In the middle of his prime, he went to jail, came back, unified all the belts again. Same thing with Ali. Ali got his prime cut short because of the draft shit. Gets his license revoked, comes back, is able to get the championship. Like, that these major superstars that we talk about from history, they have these weird points where it's weird how that works out, right? Even a guy like Tiger Woods, like terrible injury, right, makes a comeback. The comeback is what we live for as Americans. We live for that shit. Also, we live to hate too, because really the biggest thing motivating Jordan through this comeback is all the pundits going, he's over the hill. He should never have quit. Fucking, who cares? It's all back to them doubting him again, which is another thing that that I don't think gets talked about enough. You were mentioning before in 2021, it's looked different. Michael Jordan might be looked differently in 2021 than he would, in '96. But he's getting just as much criticism in the moment. In the moment, he's getting as much criticism as any superstar before him, for sure, and then after him. And the reason why people see him as the GOAT is because 9 times out of 10, he came up and rose above the criticism. That's what people think. And it's always because Jordan knows how to spin it into motivation. He can tell you in a nice way.
I don't know. I disagree with the he gets as much criticism. I don't think so, but
well, why not?
I just think, I mean, if you listen to the commentators during the games, they talk about him and say he's the greatest player of all time.
Well, yeah, he's still got the statue in front of his thing, but
this was like during his first three-peat. I heard them saying things like that. Like he got way more praise than criticism compared to a lot of other especially superstars of at least the last 15, 20 years.
Right.
Probably the last 10.
Right.
I think, and I really think social media is huge. And I mean, he said it himself, even he said that he feels like social media would have been a issue for him too. Like, I've heard him say that in interviews.
Maybe. I don't agree with his own opinion, but I think
because a man doesn't know himself. Russell knows him from 5,000 feet away.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, Michael. If there's Michael Jordan's many things, he does not seem very self-aware. He just doesn't. I think if he was, he would have had a way more successful franchise other than the Bobcats. But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, and I also do think Magic Johnson had way more criticism than him throughout.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that at all. Michael Jordan had several books written about how his ruthlessness and people trying to come at him for his behavior and his mentality on the court. He's had people try and blow up things that like the gambling thing, blow things completely out of proportion to try and knock him off the so-called pedestal. There's stuff every single year, it feels like, that where he gets doubted. This year he retired. The league's moved on without you. We don't think you're getting to the championship. You know what I mean?
Tragic Johnson stuff.
Well, that too. But also, name me a series besides the one we're about to get into in about 10 minutes where Michael Jordan has that bad of a moment in the NBA Finals. It's just not the same. When all the eyeballs are on Jordan, when the highest ratings are on, he always ends up shining.
No, but that's not me saying. I agree that he's the greatest player of all time, but we're talking about criticism.
Yeah, and what I'm saying is you get a lot of criticism when all the eyeballs are on you in the hottest spotlight. And Magic had that tragic Johnson moment in the finals. Jordan didn't have those moments. He just didn't have those moments on those stages. And when he did, it was the Pistons, and he got plenty of shit.
So you just agreed with me.
You're telling me it didn't happen because he just wasn't criticized. I'm telling you what you're saying specifically did not happen because he did not let it happen. There's two different things we're talking about here.
He definitely, there were certain, he had games that would have, if he would have lost the series, there were definitely games that he had throughout his.
What was that word you used before you started talking?
Yeah, of course, and I know that. But what I'm saying is this conversation right now is more outcome driven. He won the championship, so that's why we're not saying this. But if he would have lost, he would have got that moment, which is fine.
Yeah.
But all I'm saying is when you say no other player has gotten the criticism or that he did. I named one that, to me, especially in that, he had that for an entire year where it already burns to freaking lose an NBA championship and to be completely blamed for it.
Yeah.
And then have to go through that whole entire year and have people still calling you that. Like,
you don't think he was blamed for the loss to the Magic the year before?
No.
Oh, I don't agree with that.
All right, time out. Literally throughout in the whole documentary
that he made and he produced. Continue.
And other guys talked in it. And
my point is, just because it's not in the documentary doesn't mean it didn't happen. That those tapes where he got the ball stolen from him, we didn't see until we were like 15, 16 years old because no one could see them before YouTube because they were burned and no one had seen them. Everyone calls those the burned tapes because Jordan sucked in those games except for the one where he changes his jersey.
But
that's
even
the truth.
So, they blamed it on something else.
But that's not what like if you look back at the Chicago Tribune, the views, it'll be on your screen. There's all kinds of articles about Jordan. Does he still got it? Jordan, gaffes in the playoffs. Jordan, not the same guy.
Equivalent to the tragic Johnson? It was not at all.
But that's because it wasn't in the finals. I can't control that.
There was nobody defending Magic. It was literally, even people from LA felt a way about Magic doing what he did. Like, Magic literally was at his lowest low.
Yeah.
Jordan arguably never had that.
I guess I just disagree because I don't think that's necessarily what I'm referring to in terms of, because like that happened because Magic fucked up. If Michael had fucked up, that would have happened, like you said before.
No, you just named a situation where Magic.
And I think it happened, but you don't. I can't control it.
Definitely did. Like, no, still to this day, it's like
I cannot control that.
It's acted like it never happened. Like, you speak to
the NBA acts like it never happened, but I don't have to act like it never happened.
But there's a reason that the NBA acts like Magic happened, LeBron happened, like stuff like that.
Man, you're the conspiracy guy on this show, and you're trying to tell me that fucking there's no conspiracy with that?
With what?
With the reason why they don't talk about that game?
No, that's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that, like with the Michael Jordan thing?
Yeah, because to protect him. The NBA doesn't talk about it, but the Chicago Tribune did, the New York Times did, the Orlando Sun-Sentinel did. Like, all the newspapers that aren't controlled by the NBA were talking about it. That's all I'm saying. Is, of course, The Last Dance isn't going to mention it.
But you talk about it after it happened, and it's done.
Right, but that could be said for Twitter. That could be said for anything.
But that wasn't the case for Magic. We know this wasn't the case for Magic. He had to go through that for an entire year where he had to.
I guess. I just think I don't necessarily.
And especially LeBron. LeBron in 2011 after that meltdown.
But then, again, this is another thing that they controlled. Michael Jordan just never had one of those moments. If he did, but I think Michael Jordan was bombarded with criticism every single year of his career. Like, these guys are.
But that's superstar shit, anyways. Like,
I'm not disagreeing with that, but I think it's the most to that point because I think Magic didn't have to deal with that outside of tragic that one time, right? As you just said, outside of that, he was Magic, Showtime, we love you. It was before Jordan, it was him that they were like, mwah. You're better than Bird. You beat him in the best of 3. We love you. You have AIDS. Oh no, we're sad. Like, that's how it was.
Well, you should be sad with that. All right, let's move on. We're good.
Yeah. Having said that, most valuable player. It's a sweep. I don't think you can give it to anybody else for this season. There's a reason why we haven't talked about the season itself because it's basically Michael Jordan. 72 wins, Bulls, and we got to get to the playoffs. Because the thing that they came out with, the T-shirt that they came out with through the whole playoffs was, it doesn't mean a thing without the ring.
Yeah.
Apparently they had that in round.
I had that. Thank you, friend. Well, and I love that because so the Warriors had that same shit with the 73-9. Like, and it was like, that's added pressure to a team. I mean, I don't know how much added pressure it was to the Bulls, really, but for the Warriors, for sure, I think that added a lot of pressure to them.
Sure.
And I remember like them even like I feel like they almost complained about the pressure too, with the 73-9 bullshit. But it's funny to see that even players from their team, like I think Bill Wennington had an interview right before the playoffs started. and he stated that. He was like, it means the 72-10 means nothing if it doesn't come with a ring behind it.
Right.
And like to take on that, it was just a different mindset, and I thought that was super dope.
I always had thought that it was a media given thing, the way the media gave it to the Warriors, like you were alluding to, because the Warriors didn't ask for that, as you were saying.
Yeah.
And I always thought that it had been given to them. But to hear that the Bulls just kind of made it up in their own locker room,
that's the part. Yeah, it makes it super dope.
Maybe the pressure is not the same. I wonder. I mean, this is just total hype and speculation because I will never know the answer to this definitively. But I wonder if it's just less pressure solely because they put it on themselves, and so they don't feel it the same way. Like you said, a guy like Jordan. This is a guy who, in The Last Dance, with all the marbles on the line, fucking is walking through Utah, like whatever, like jumping around. And I wonder if because they gave it to themselves and because they already had won 3 championships, that it was like, no, this is what we have to do. There is no other. There's just no other way of looking at it. We win the championship. That's it.
And I know they mentioned, especially in The Last Dance, that Jordan had like that general, like he was like a war general almost, like mindset. So it was like, we making this up, and we're gonna have this pressure, and we're gonna freaking thrive. Like that's his mindset, and that's how he always was. So I could see how they would be ready for it.
I think this is the most relatable thing between Jordan and LeBron, especially this last three-peat Jordan and the LeBron we see right now, which is both those guys, and that this speaks to the military mentality and the seriousness. They are in total understanding of, look, I have this much time to win a championship. You are not fucking it up for me.
Yeah.
No one is fucking it up for me. And that's it. I'm on the tail end of my 30s here.
Yeah.
If I don't get it done now, I'm running out. The hourglass is running out of time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the whole team feels that sense of pressure. I would say that for sure.
And just so I could speak as a Kobe fan real quick.
As usual.
Yeah, as usual. I think, and obvious, this is pretty obvious, but I think this is these 3 years are the 3 years that everybody really compares from Kobe. Because if you really look at Kobe's I don't know, year 96 all the way to almost 2006, they don't play nowhere near like compared to like Jordan's first 3P. Like they don't have identical games. Like
true.
It's this era Jordan where Kobe clearly, like, I think he picked his brain too on how to play at an older age to still be effective.
Yeah.
And because when you look at the film where they they do the Kobe Jordan comparisons and they're doing the exact same moves in the same spots,
right?
Like it's always this Jordan. It's like if you look at it, it's like the older Jordan that's doing it. Yeah. So I just thought to mention that. If you look at like statistically in the playoffs too, they play literally almost identical. Like Kobe's 3P run, I mean he went to the 3 finals or whatever and won 2.
Right.
It was almost the same stats as Jordan.
And the mentality is from this 3P. Like we talked about the Jordan rules and all that shit that I was talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
But when everyone talks about the ruthless killer, it's mostly stories from this time. And I think it just goes into the mystique thing. I think it's more of a mystique thing than anything else. Like I said, you got to come in the playoffs. You have to come to Chicago Stadium. And when you get on the bus, when you walk in, you just see his statue right up front. And that guy is not retired. Yeah, he's playing. That's crazy. That's crazy. Shaq's big statue in the Staples Center. Imagine if that was there in 2000.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Like, that is just crazy to me. So, and then he comes in, and it's this slow pace, and they just suffocate you on defense.
Mm-hmm.
They hold the Miami Heat in round 1 here to 83 points a game, right? Pace is under 90. So this is just all what Chicago wants to do.
Yeah.
Alonzo Mourning, right? 18 points, 48% shooting. The team only shoots 42%, and they just suffocate. They're just all about that defensive grind, and it's impressive, especially when they go against teams that are just not at that level in this period of time. And the Heat, they're going to go against the Knicks team in a few years, and they're going to have, like, historically some of the lowest scoring NBA playoff games of all time. And that's what they're about, is that grind stuff. And Jordan and Pippen just say, fuck you guys. And even
this is like a small little rivalry that kind of happens over the next couple of years with the Heat and Lakers. I mean, sorry, Bulls.
Yeah.
And it's a Pat Riley thing again. Pat Riley's the
because of course it is.
Team. Huh?
Because of course it is.
Yeah, and he kind of. I think if you gave Pat Riley some really great players around them, like if they had the talent level of the Bulls at this point, and you gave Pat Riley that team to coach, I feel like he could have possibly dethroned Jordan at least for one of these years.
Maybe
because look at it, that Knicks team that Jordan struggled. Jordan did kind of struggle against that Knicks team.
The Bulls as a whole struggled against them for sure.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like they only really had Patrick Ewing that was like that superstar. Everything else was like very role player-esque and like Starks played decent defense on Jordan, and but I think if you gave him maybe if you would have given him Ewing and one more star, I think they would have given him a run for their money. They brought him to 7 in one of those years, you know.
Yeah. And they're the only, outside of the Pacers that we'll meet later, they're the only team to bring them to 7. But the only thing that I will say I don't agree is I just feel like there's so many coaches in this era that feel that way specifically. Like,
I think Pat Riley was the best coach he faced.
There's a case to be made for that. Like,
and another thing that I noticed while listening to these games and some of these documentaries and hearing some of the huddles, and I'm not saying I'm like the smartest basketball guy in the world, but a lot of these coaches sound fucking dumb. Like, just some of the things, like it sounds so old school, like it's like a Cinderella story kind of coaching.
The theme of this season, clearly, because of everything that we've talked about, the theme for us this season is just this team is not the greatest team ever. I think that's where we're kind of going with this, and here's why. This team, in order to be the greatest team ever, and a lot of people think this team can travel through history and beat other teams, right?
Yeah.
You can't. Steve Kerr is the best example of this, right? Steve Kerr barely made the NBA to get in the first place. Managed to be a role player. This guy, and a specialist specifically.
Yeah, well, that was like why he was able to be a role player, because he was a specialist in that. Yeah.
He stands no chance to make the NBA in 2021.
Yeah.
None. He's not tall enough.
Curry will be cooking his old coach.
That's what I'm saying. Like, it would be absolutely no contest, and it's a point guard driven league now.
Yeah.
There are benefits to Michael Jordan himself coming into 2021, but this team is too defensive for this era. I genuinely believe that.
This team is 100% not the greatest team of all time, but it's not even the greatest MJ team of all time, in my opinion.
I think it's the best defensive team that he has. This team is so good. This team is so, and this even basically all three of these teams, but this is the most healthy of the second three teams. This team is the best defensive team I think that I've seen of all the legacy breakdowns we've done so far, and of all the history of basketball. I would feel comfortable with that.
Yeah,
and I think they would be able to hold a great team historically to a low shooting percentage, but if they don't hold them to a low pace, they're not going to win.
Yeah.
They cannot win in a pace that's at that 100 level.
And I agree 100% with that. Like I definitely do think they're one of the best defensive teams of all time, or especially his. But it if we do have to bring them into the time machine, they're gonna have trouble. Like
Facts.
It's not gonna be as easy. I feel like to explain what they'll do, because a lot of it is just assuming. All right, how would they guard up against this guy in this new pace and era and. You know what I mean? Like, it's completely different than any other legacy breakdown we'd have to do.
I agree. I'm looking forward to it. But they get through the Heat. Let's move on to the Knicks. Because we move from Pat Riley's new team to Pat Riley's old team.
Yeah.
So, Knicks, if I can find where I put that, here we go. Knicks are the only team to beat them in the East. They're the only team to get a game on them. Because Heat went 3-0.
Yeah.
Knicks get the one, and then Magic, we're going to see in a minute.
And the
heavy revenge.
Yeah. Like, so the Bulls take a 2-0 lead right away.
Yeah.
And they look like obviously the back to his rare form and undefeated kind of style. And Kukoc gets a back strain during practice. Going into game 3.
Yeah.
And that's what allows the Knicks to have a little bit of an edge going into the game. And still, the Bulls bring them to overtime. And Jordan, I think Jordan hits a shot to bring them to take them to overtime.
Yeah.
And then that's where Patrick Ewing just kind of does his thing in overtime. I think he goes off. I think he scores like 6 out of the 11 points. How many points did they score in overtime?
I think it's at 11. I'll double check.
Yeah, I think he scored 6 out of
14.
6 out of the 14 points, and he put them away.
22-13 with 3 blocks for Ewing in the game.
Yeah.
Hopefully, with a good get 4 starters in double figures, 5 players in double figures.
Starks went off too.
Starks with 30. He had 5 threes. Going back to another theme that we're kind of talking about with these teams, if one guy gets hot from 3 in this era, and it changes the game, which I just think is so interesting.
Yeah.
Like, and when you talk about how coaches are dumb, here's why I didn't say shit or disagree with you. I don't understand how you don't look at a game like this and go, oh, wow. Knicks played well, but it really opened up when, Starks just started unloading from 3.
Yeah.
And
Pippen shot 11 threes.
They were down most of the game, were they not? Yeah, they were down.
Yeah.
Well, they were definitely down to start the game, so they had to get back. They had to get back into it, and that causes the threes to get launched. But this goes back to what we were saying. Knicks score 100 points, and the Bulls, even though Jordan drops 46,
yep,
46 is 46% of their points, basically.
Yeah.
And I just don't know how. This is what makes this such a weird math problem going forward.
And in reality, like, they do have two of the best perimeter defenders in NBA history, right?
Yeah, of all time. 3 if you include Rodman, because Rodman.
But they also, yeah, I agree. But when you think about it, they didn't have to worry about a 3-point shot. Most of that 10-year dominance, they were playing from inside the lines.
Yeah.
So it's easier to play defense that way.
Agreed.
When you have a guy like Steph, and I'm just using Steph as an example, because he's more than likely going to be a team that he has to face in our legacy breakdown. I mean, in our hypotheticals.
Yeah.
When you got a guy like Steph who's pulling you away 30 feet, that makes Pippen not as effective. That makes Jordan not as effective. Maybe you might lock him up, but now how are you going to help out when somebody blows by Pippen? You know what I mean? Like, little things like that. Like, it's just more floor spreading, and it makes it more difficult for these guys. And you can see the Knicks probably shouldn't have won a game in this series, but you had Starks wild out from 3, give you 30 points, and then Ewing closed it out. And it got them a W. Sure, they didn't win the whole series because that wasn't their main focus. But if this was the Houston Rockets, would that have been an issue? You know what I mean?
It's exactly where my head's at.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that.
And the reason, and for anybody who doesn't know, because you're just learning about Michael Jordan, the reason I mentioned the Houston Rockets is because Hakeem Olajuwon was a big man that was dominant in the inside, and then you had Houston shooting a bunch of threes, and it was like an in and out game. So
a bunch of three specialists.
Yeah.
At that time, but I just, it's amazing to me that they never went up against a team like that outside of Orlando in this entire time, and Orlando is the only team to beat them in that period of time.
Yeah, and it's also like
crazy.
You got an unseasoned Shaq. You know what I mean? Like this is not Shaq. Like when this is not prime Shaq.
Hey, he's still top 3 in MVP voting in a few of these years.
No, I agree. But we know that there's a difference. Like LeBron James was great in his first 7-8 seasons in Cleveland, but he's not that guy after he wins that first championship in Miami. Like that season and like learning, there's the experience of doing that kind of changes. Changes the player significantly. Like Shaq is no way near the same player that he was in 2000 or 2001.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. However,
but he's definitely still a great player, but he's just not that. He's not like Olajuwon would have been a completely different matchup for them.
Pippen also gets an injury in this Knicks series. I know that for a fact because he shoots an ungodly, horrific percentage. I don't know if it's a serious injury. I think it's a tweaking of the back. Yeah, I have that written down. There's one for he has something happen to him in '97 also, but
I think Pippen gets a foot injury in 90 at the end of the. Are you sure it's in this series? Because I thought he got a foot injury in the Eastern Conference Finals last game.
That's what but no, I think he has a twisted. I'll double check right now. I
thought it was a foot injury, but I might be wrong.
No, you're not wrong. You're not. This is a different thing. I'm 1,000. It's a different thing. Okay. Pippen, who has had reoccurring back problems since surgery to remove a herniated disc in 1988, has experienced various minor back problems since February of '96.
What a pussy!
So we're in the playoffs. That's why. He missed 5 games in March while nursing various injuries, did Pippen. But even though he scored 24 points in the Knicks' 102-99 overtime victory Saturday, he was injured. And he only shot 30 whatever percent for this series. What percentage was that? I knew it, the percentage is what made me trigger because I was going to shit on him again. And then I remembered, oh wait, he was hurt.
Yeah. Another thing just about that, like a lot of people would look at that and say, just kind of let it, don't play him or whatever. And like, cause when you look at players of this era, like pretty much you sprain an ankle, you're out for the series or whatever, you know what I mean? Like they do that a lot now. I know you've mentioned that before.
Yeah.
But in reality, if Pippen leaves the series, they're screwed. There's not much, there's not much depth after that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and that's why I think he's still playing because I'm pretty sure he's pretty aware of that.
Yeah.
But I knew he had fucked up his back in this series because I was reading about it when I was doing research, and it's not mentioned because he still plays. But you can tell in his field goal percentage that he's fucked up.
Yeah.
33% even for Pippen is ass soup. Oh my God, it's fucking horrible. Yeah. 29 for 88. Even when you say that, it's ugly.
And that makes way more sense on why he was shooting the threes and stuff. Because he was probably just trying to,
Bro, 30 3-point attempts.
Yeah.
They're just jacking him up, too, because Harper's taking 20. Jordan took 22.
See, and that's my thing. Because I know one thing that I do know about basketball is when you're tired, you shoot. You don't drive. So, and I really do think Huh? Yeah, and I really do think that the defensive pressure that they had to put, especially with Jordan at a older age, mattered a lot because all right, we're playing great defense, but now my offense is harder to get. Like I don't think he's that same offensive player because especially in these last three P, he's shooting significantly more than he's driving.
Yeah.
Like, and before it was the exact opposite. It was he was a driver first, and then he shot. He got his mid range shot going, and I think that matters a lot.
Well, look, he's over 30 now.
Yep, so, and for the whole postseason, he's going to do that.
And like I was just reading out, and he started having herniated disc issues in 1988. And what do we know about guys with bad backs? They don't stick around forever at the top.
Yeah.
Right? Look at a guy like Larry Bird. He could only get through, and that's a guy with perfect fundamentals.
Yeah,
he could only get through so much.
Pippen does not have that.
Scottie Pippen's not that same guy.
Yeah. And to go back to your 30 so remember, we talked about Jordan as an anomaly because he was getting these 30 points per game as a guard, but shooting over 50% throughout multiple playoff series and playoff runs. And look, he's shooting 44%. That's more of a Kobe stat line.
Facts.
And that's why I think they're, yeah.
And I know there's going to be some asshole in the comments who goes, "Oh, you fucking comparing Kobe to Jordan? Fuck you." It's true though. You're totally right. Especially the field goal percentage and the shots for a playoff series. This is a very Kobe-esque stat line. I totally agree with that.
Thank you.
People,
but it still shows greatness, boy.
but
that's that second tier. My bad, not to keep on, but that's that I love Kobe to death, but that's where I can see that he just went a tier. Pretty much, Jordan is like a little better version of Kobe Bryant right now, versus in his other form, he was Michael Jordan. He was that I really do think in this third three-peat he becomes like a slightly better version of Kobe Bryant.
It's fair. I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to fight you on it. Not in this series though. This is a series where he is out for blood. The Orlando Magic, as I opened this, embarrassed the Bulls. Jordan got the ball stripped from him. He wasn't able to close like in classic Jordan fashion. And as many all-time great winning teams have, it's usually started from a loss that was devastating the year before, right? So after they lose to the Magic, they go on this crazy run. They smack everybody, and now they're in the conference finals. And Shaq and Penny really give it their fucking best. Shaq, 27 and 11, 64% shooting. 1.5 steals, 1.5 blocks. Penny, 25 points a game, 47% shooting, 30% from three. They tried their damnedest to get it done.
Yeah.
But
stars came through. It was just the other guys.
And look, Shaq, really the only guy we've seen that actually has had offensive success from a statistical standpoint against this Bulls team.
Yeah. And what happened with Horace? Is he not with them?
Great question. He got hurt, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got hurt in game one. Because he only played 28 minutes in game one, and he got injured. I'll have the injury on your screen, what happened to him. I don't know it off the top of my head. But they're swept because Penny and Shaq are not able to do it alone. So look, even in the dynamic duo that is more comparable to today's game, they looked at it like, we're going to let these guys eat, but we are going to eliminate everybody else, which is basically what they did. Yeah. Nobody else.
Very, very Spurs-esque.
True.
Or even Boston-esque.
True.
And the only game that was actually pretty close was game 2. Jordan gets his MVP trophy in that game. And literally the Bulls come out flat. I think the Bulls were actually losing like 62 to like 38 or something. I think it was crazy. I might be
It
wrong.
looks like they come out. Yeah, they lost.
Oh, 50, is it 53? I thought it was 62. 50, yeah, 53 to 38.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, pretty much the third or fourth quarter, the Bulls go on a little run and just beat the shit out of them.
I don't know if this is true, but based on the way that the media and the way the NBA builds the Bulls in this era, it sounds like they're one of the first teams to have the switch, where you can flip the switch from having a bad game to a great game and like turn it around, and they became super known for that.
But
they were known for that.
Honestly, the reason I feel like that is because, and you're talking about in both, and that's both Bulls dynasties.
Yeah, but I found when I was looking up this year specifically during the 72-10 era, they talked about the switch more often.
Because they would go down 15 points and then it would just like go away right away.
The way you were talking about when we were discussing the regular season.
Yeah, and I feel like that's the case mainly because when you think about the other dynasties, they had other dynasties that they were going against. You know, like since it was like I know that sounds weird or whatever, but
oh no, I got you.
In the 80s, you had like Boston had to go against the bad boys. Boston had to go against Philly. You know, like you had those other teams that you couldn't flip the switch on. Like if you didn't play them to your best of your ability, you're gonna get the shit beat out of you. Like Philly like that 76ers team towards the beginning of the 80s.
Right.
They swept the Lakers. They swept the Lakers with Magic and Kareem. Like this is not that kind of team where you can flick a switch and beat them. If you do that, you're gonna get your ass kicked. And I think the Bulls had that luxury mainly in this era, in this 3P. In the other 3P, they didn't. Whenever they did that, they lost games, and then they had to come back the next game. They couldn't flick the switch in the middle of the game because you were gonna lose. When they went against against the Knicks, for instance, when they went against the Knicks in those 7-game series, they would have those off nights, and it's kind of like that switch isn't on, right? But you lost those games, or you got blown out those games, and then they had to come back and bounce back. So
Rodman fucking is awesome in this series. 11 points, 16 rebounds, shooting 53%. 11 points is like maxing out for Rodman, and so I'm impressed. And we're going to see in the finals too. There are a few times during this season in particular where Rodman just plays like, whoa, Rodman is being clutch. Like when you think about Dennis Rodman, you don't think of him as like a clutch.
It's always like tip rebounds and shit like that.
Yeah, but not only that, like he makes the right pass. He makes good passes. Like you'd think Rodman would have trouble throwing a full court outlet or like a pass to the corner, like a swift little Larry Bird. But he can do stuff like that, which I never knew about his game because he's not a high assist per game guy. Yeah. But he makes that, and it's also because the triangle has those quick hockey assist passes too.
Yeah.
I never realized how good Rodman really was at all the things.
When you were making a point earlier, I didn't want to cause like another discussion, but when you said, I think you said Rodman wouldn't be able to score 10 points in this era, and I was like, I just picture him as like a Kevin Love kind of player, like early 2010s Kevin Love, where Kevin Love was getting most of his buckets through offensive rebounds and just putbacks. And I feel like he definitely would be that 100%.
It's hard when I see Kevin Love. I just always see him shooting a three. It's hard, like in my head.
Yeah.
And that immediately eliminates that comparison.
Yeah. I think, but like Kevin Love literally would get, I think, 10 points off of offensive rebounds alone. Like he averaged 26 and 14 one year, and I think most of that, like if you looked at his offensive rebounds, he got like 4 or 5 that year.
I think the evolution of Rodman would be Draymond. Like as we keep going through the air, like this is the archetype for Dennis Rodman. Bill Russell starts with Bill Russell.
We've had this conversation in the past.
It's Dennis Rodman in the late 80s and leading into this era, right? Then after that, it's Ben Wallace.
Yep.
Then it's
I think it goes Draymond right after that.
Some people throw Dwight Howard in there because technically he fits the description.
Yeah, but he doesn't. It's not that. It's not the same kind of defender though. He's more of a just rim protector.
Yeah, but the archetype that I'm speaking of is undersized defender who doesn't score as their primary weapon on the basketball court and wins way more rings than you'd think. And that's why Dwight Howard doesn't get in there for me because of that last one. But all the other ones, he fits the description because that elite defense at the undersized, being undersized for the position.
I feel like Dwight is literally just a fit version of Shaq. I feel like that's how he tried to play.
He tried, yeah. But what he should have done, he should have just tried to be a bigger version of Ben Wallace.
Yeah,
would have been better for him. I think,
but that's not as flashy. And also, like, think about it. He got so much money off of that Superman bullshit. You know what I mean? Like
he was awesome.
Players don't want to play. Players don't want to play that kind of style because that's not going to get you.
But Rodman's career and Draymond Green's career and Ben Wallace's career and these kind of careers is why I think Bill Russell translates into the future of the NBA and why that type of player will always win and always be. It shows that greatness, but I don't think Dennis Rodman is getting any points in today's era besides these putbacks or solely because the pace is up. Maybe I could see him getting he could average 18 rebounds a game and 12 points, maybe.
Yeah. But that's what he'd want to do. That's what makes him.
Facts. But all right. Jordan. Oh, last thing. Jordan 45 in Game 4 closeout game. Just smashing their asshole.
You become numb to all of these 40 pieces he throws.
Right? I was having this. That's so fucking funny that you said that because when I was doing research for this before we recorded, I was like, how many times have I just run through games and been like, oh yeah, 53. And then you know what I thought of? I thought of all the guys who sit and on open court or all the interviews and whatnot when they get interviewed and they're just like, yeah, Jordan just gave us 48 that night.
Yeah.
And it's just like another night and everybody laughs. And now I have a very
I mean, and it's because that's not normal.
No, it's not.
Like we look at these 40-point games, like Giannis, for instance. So this is currently 2021. It's July 18th, the day before my birthday. If you guys want to know, let's go. But the Bucks are facing the Phoenix Suns, and Giannis goes and scores. This is not just recently, but it's game 2 and 3. He has back-to-back 40-point games, and everybody's looking at that as an amazing thing, which it is. But then they go and show a stat and just say, yeah, Jordan holds the record with 4 straight 40-point games, and it's like, what the hell? Like that's just it's just like so much
back to back 9 times.
Huh?
He scored 40 back to back in playoff games 9 times or 10 times or whatever.
Yeah,
fucking insane. He's a ridiculous human, and he really is a superhuman, especially at this later stages of his career. He's not sleeping a lot because he's notorious for that.
Mm-hmm.
Just a psycho, man.
Yeah, there's no way these NBA players have to be aliens.
This NBA player is for sure an alien.
They're superhumans for sure. There's no way you could play because he's playing golf. He's playing 18 holes of golf and playing these games.
I wanted to mention that when we go to the finals. Let's talk about the finals, really.
The one thing I did want to note, which is this is Jordan's first finals MVP without scoring over 30. And I think it's because they definitely did fuck with him defensively.
Yeah, hold on. Let's do this game by game.
I was gonna jump into it.
Oh yeah. Go ahead.
No, you gotta.
Because when we do game by game, that's something that I noticed in game 1. Right? Gary Payton talks about Jordan really busted our fucking ass, really beat us in the last dance. And then I'm looking at it. Payton's got 13 and 10 rebounds with 6 assists. Right? Sean Kemp's got 32, smashing them. He may have 7 turnovers, but 32 points on this defense is impressive. Jordan's only got 28 points on 18 shots, which sounds like, whatever. But for Jordan, that's like relatively tame.
Yeah. He got the 10 free throws. I mean, that kind of helped him
There's
out.
a lot of that in this series where Jordan is getting to the line because they're playing him physical and like that's their goal.
And so Gary Payton's biggest regret, or not biggest regret, but more so his biggest complaint about this finals is he felt like he should have guarded him earlier.
He had a calf injury going into the finals.
Yeah.
And George Karl said to him, "We are not going to blow your load in games 1 and 2. When by the time we get to game 6, you're going to be fucking exhausted and you won't be able to fucking guard him."
Yeah.
Which in hindsight, I think is a guy in George Karl has a terrible reputation for. Hold on, let me get through this.
Yeah.
Terrible reputation for being a dick to players since this point, but I think Gary Payton is saving, or I think George Karl is saving Gary Payton from himself in this instance. So I don't necessarily hate the move, but they said Jordan really busted their ass, and Jordan's didn't lead the game in scoring here. Really, game 3 is the one where they bust their ass. But this is the one thing I wanted to mention before we really dive into this. This series has no two teams have won more games to get to an NBA Finals than to get to this point right here. The Supersonics were first in the West with 64 wins,
64,
I think.
Yeah, you're right.
And then, obviously the Bulls with their 72 by a wide margin, I'm sure, this is going to be the most wins ever to meet in the NBA Finals. Both teams known for their defense.
That's crazy. Not even not next year's. How many?
No, the 69 in Karl Malone. It might be. You know what? It might be.
Because Utah has some.
But at this point, that's what it is for sure. Payton comes in with the bad calf. We talked about Kukoc already. We talked about Pippen already. So guys are coming in injured. This is a bumps and bruises playoffs to get to where we've got.
Yeah.
And the Bulls are going to get that take the first game at home, the second game at home. Jordan's going to do the same type thing. It's like I don't think he scores 30 in this one either.
Yeah. The part that's really weird about this finals is usually with every single Jordan finals, there's a story. There's some type of story.
There is one, but it doesn't come till the end.
Yeah. It's just not as fun as the other ones, especially the next season. Next season's pretty dope.
But this is the motivation. The motivation juice for Jordan for this year was George Karl. This is such a great story. George Karl is having dinner at the same place Jordan's having dinner right before game 1, and Jordan goes, "Hey, George Karl, what's up?" And George Karl walks right by him.
Having dinner. Hey, there's George Karl over there. And George Karl does not come over and speak to him.
He walked right past me. Now look at Mossy. Really? Oh, so that's how you're going to play it.
He just kind of went by, and I went, uh-oh, should have never done that.
I said, it's a crock of shit. We went to Carolina. Dean Smith. I see him in the summer. We play golf. You going to do this? Okay, fine. That's all I needed. That's all I needed for him to do that. And it became personal with me.
Now, the funny part about that is, and this will be on your screen, George Karl in an interview said, after this came out in The Last Dance, George Karl was like, "Dude, I was told by my head coaches, or by my assistant coaches, don't talk to this guy. Anything you do to give him more motivation will be absolutely backfire. So what did I do? I walked by him. I didn't say a fucking word."
Even worse.
The irony that he ended up using that as motivation is amazing to me.
Yeah.
It's so amazing. Oh my God. As soon as you said there's no stories, I was like, that's the one that I do know.
Yeah. I mean, but it's still not like
no. I know what you're saying.
Many, iconic, you know what I mean? That's not really the one that's talked about much, I feel like this finals is almost not. It's just a 72-10 season, and then that's it. No one.
I think this is an interesting finals because of the dynamic and because of the two winningest teams, number one, and what we're about to get to with the Gary Payton stuff. But Bulls are going to go up 3-0. This is a Jordan's putting his foot in your ass game. 36 points, 11 of 23, hits all 11 free throws, 3 of 4 from 3. This is a classic Jordan game that we've seen throughout his whole career, where he's just beating that ass.
Yeah, and that's game 3, you said?
Yes. Wow. This is just total beatdown. This is crazy.
Yeah.
I'm just surprised by this. Even though the Bulls were held to 13 points in a quarter, it just doesn't matter at all because they scored almost 30 in every other quarter.
Yeah.
Which is like, that's average for today's era, but back then, that's like totally dominant. In my opinion.
You'd imagine the betting odds at that point would have had Seattle.
Oh my God.
Huh?
See, that's the weird thing. So there's two sides to this finals. It's that the two teams with the most wins are playing each other. But then there's the Bob Costas angle, which is that this is a landslide from the betting perspective.
Now these Sonics step onto the NBA's biggest stage for the first time against a team many have already declared the best of all time. An assessment the Sonics could alter, but only by pulling off one of the greatest upsets in sports history. Game 1.
Because everyone just expects the Bulls to smash their...
But I would have imagined game 3 would have been the one game Seattle would have been favored.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, because, you going into...
that crowd going in Seattle.
Always game 3s usually go into the... I mean, game 3 in this current NBA Finals wasn't like that, but... Right. For the most part, you usually expect the home team. They're if you lose, you're in a shitty situation because you pretty much your season's over. Like
no one's come back from 3-0.
Yeah, no one's ever. So you need it. You need to win this game. So usually all the money, big money, is probably on Seattle to win it.
But Gary Payton after Game 3 goes up to George Karl and goes, "Fuck you, George. Can't control this no more." Just hilarious.
You motherfucker.
Exactly how he said it. It's exactly how Gary Payton talks. If you've ever heard Gary Payton talk, it's an experience. Me and Lindsay went to the Big 3 championship and sat in the front row. Gary Payton's one of the coaches he's the head coach of one of the teams. And we heard some prime Gary Payton.
That's so dope. It
was awesome. It was awesome, dude.
He was so intense. It was so cool.
Yeah. You're going to be my cheerleader. That's what you going to be. My cheerleader. Boy, you ain't talking about nothing. You ain't nothing. Boy, all you do is run around and suck on everybody else. Sucker. Keep laying wood on your ass. Keep laying wood on your ass. Get it back. You're weak. Weak ass. Get your weak ass out of here.
Can you imagine Gary Payton and Michael Jordan going at it on the court? I used to see it. I used to see it.
Where was that?
It was in the Barclays Center.
Oh, that's dope as shit.
Their second ever championship. We went to their first ever game and their second championship because they were both in Barclays Center. But this is a defensive showcase by the Sonics here. He is going to frustrate. Gary Payton is going to frustrate MJ. 23 points on 19 shots, 31% in Game 4 for MJ. Still getting to the free throw line over 10 times.
Yeah, you get that superstar love.
Facts, but not even the superstar love. Honestly, it's just because of how aggressive Gary Payton's being to him on defense the whole time. He's got 4 fouls by himself,
21 and 11,
and it's Gary Payton showing that he's not afraid of MJ, according to Gary Payton. But then you see MJ looking at the damn tablet, listening to him, just dying.
All right, I need to call bullshit on something. I hate the excuse MJ uses on it. I don't know if I'm an asshole for this or what, because he tries to blame it on his dad not being there, and I could understand.
That's how they make it sound. Because they cut weird in the documentary, because he just goes, "I had my mind on other things." And then they cut to the Father's Day game. But I who knows what he said after the camera, or not after the camera cut, but after they chose to cut it. Yeah. I know what you're talking about, though. Yeah. If that is what he's implying, I do agree with you. That's a lame excuse.
Yeah, because it's like bro, you were just I was just like beating the shit out of this team. Now suddenly, like, oh, you're remembering your dad.
All of a sudden, my daddy's gone.
Yeah. Yo, God.
You guys are fucked up. Can we
It's
just
cool.
talk about that?
I am going to hell. It's fine. I already have.
Like, I wasn't trying to go that far. Such an ass. But
I don't know what you're talking about. I just did a great impression of Michael Jordan. That's exactly how he does it. That's exactly how he
with
said
the Baldy and the Space Jams shit on. You can see.
what I'm saying. 25 and 11 for Sean Kemp. And what did Sean Kemp average for this series?
Let me guess. 23.5 and 11 rebounds.
23 and 10.
I'm lit. I swear to God, I didn't even look.
Very close. 1.3. What a stat sheet stuffer. 23.5, 10 rebounds, 1.3 steals, 2 blocks, 55%. Just a terrible matchup, even though Dennis Rodman's on the team. So he's just dominating Dennis Rodman, in my opinion. Because that's Dennis's matchup.
Yeah.
That's fucking great.
And it was really Gary that didn't step up.
Well, Gary,
We'll see.
he was injured, like we said. He had the calf injury. It never gets talked about. Didn't get talked about in The Last Dance.
Yeah, of course not.
Like, I didn't know he had a calf injury until I did a lot of research for it. But definitely not the numbers he had been putting up. What had he been putting up for the playoffs? So he got to his 20 points a game. So it is lower than what he was doing before that.
But I mean, you would also expect it going against like a great perimeter defensive team, you know?
Yeah, but you know what the weird thing? You know what the weird thing is? Like, Stockton does pretty well against them going after this point.
But Stockton spreads the floor more. He shoots. Like, he shoots the 3-point shot, and that I really do think that's effective against them. Because you have to pull them out further, and they're not going to be able to. Because Jordan and Pippen play off of each other so much on defense. Like,
right.
There's like a wing wall, pretty much.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
What I wanted to say was, it's very like crazy how, like, you look at like Gary Payton's regarded by many NBA legends as like a really great player.
Yeah, he
only went to the finals 2 times in his whole career. Like, to see, like, when you look at these all-time greats, like Jordan, LeBron, and all these guys that go to the finals so many times, but like you look at, like, it's not easy for them to do that. Like, they're
ask Chris Paul.
Yeah,
ask Chris Paul. It's not fucking easy at all.
Failure. You shouldn't have even been there.
Oh, here we go.
Don't even get me started with Chris.
Oh, you know what? You know what? Actually, speaking of, he shouldn't even been there. Can we talk about something real quick that I forgot to mention here in Game 2?
Yeah. The
score's 92-88, right? You know what happens at the end of this game, my friend?
What happens, my friend?
So it's a tie game. It's 88-91, right? Pippen is fouled.
Oh, yeah.
My guy, Scott.
Yep.
Scott Pippen is fouled. He goes to the line. All the pressure. Now, you'd think Scottie Pippen, you know, he gets one decent free throw shooter for his career. Yeah. Not known to be
in the 80s.
Piece of shit. Breaks both free throws. Both of them. You know who gets the next opportunity? Dennis fucking Rodman.
Yeah.
As we've alluded to throughout this entire year, cannot shoot the ball to save his life. A notoriously bad free throw shooter. Gets the job done, gets the free throw, and they win the game.
Yeah.
When Dennis Rodman is saving your ass on offense, I don't want to hear you talk anymore, Scottie Pippen, about your stupid bullshit.
Yeah, Robin. Shut your ass up.
Kukoc should have taken all the shots.
Oh.
All right? All of them.
You want to know what's funny?
Rodman's a better shooter than you. You're a pussy, Scotty.
In this same season, Kukoc actually hit a game-winning shot. True. With Jordan on the team.
True. And I don't hear Jordan going, fucking racist.
That's what fucking stupid. Oh man. And I don't hear Scotty bitching about it either.
No, not one word.
Scotty doofy ass. That's why I ain't even buying your book. I'm gonna hear about it.
But game five, Jordan 26 points on 22 shots. Again, relatively inefficient. Gary Payton's not going to do much more from an efficiency standpoint, but 23, 9 rebounds, 6 assists. Gary's getting some rebounds as a little guard.
Yeah, big boy shit.
And he was also a post-up guard, too. Like a point guard that would really use his post-up game because he was 6'4", so he's big point guard at the time. So I always think that's interesting. Nobody talks about that with Gary Payton. Kemp, again.
So much shit. Some of the stories that I've heard about Gary Payton is he used to like initiate the offense and literally like be calling plays and talking shit and like controlling the whole thing like with the refs and everything.
That's what he did as the coach. That's what he did as the head coach in the Big Three. He was cursing at the ref. He was cursing at the opposing players. He was cursing at his players. He was cursing at everybody. It was great. It was so great. It was all like he was like, you motherfucking wish that I was on the floor right now.
He said that?
Yeah, all kinds of shit. He is great. I want to go back to one of those Big Three games just to hear Gary Payton talk mad shit.
That's funny.
But they steal 2 games here, right?
Yeah.
They steal 2 games, and it's still 2-3-2, correct?
Yes.
So
they won 2 games in Seattle.
So they got to get this. So the Bulls, Game 6, it's also in Seattle, correct? Oh no,
it's
back in Chicago, 2-3-2, right? So Game 6, they go back to Chicago, and it's Father's Day.
This is why I consider Jordan's explanation bullshit, because I understand if you lose the Father's game to whatever, because
Father's Day game.
Yeah, the Father's Day game. That makes sense, but then you lost the next game too. So what? Like, you can't say he didn't play some type of good defense on you.
And to your point, he sucked in this Father's Day game.
Yeah.
26%, 5 of 19. Looks a lot like Kobe's Game 7 against Boston in 2010.
But keep on going.
Very similar.
No,
Very similar.
It's not at all.
Okay, he had 5 more rebounds. Yeah, that was it.
What? And he also hit like a big shot. Like, don't start with me, man. I'm trying to. We already been like 2 hours on this season. I'm not trying to make it another half. Trying to get me started up.
But Jordan, 22 points, 19 shots, and he's going to walk away with Finals MVP here.
But this is
by default. Like you were saying to start this Finals breakdown, 27 points on 41% shooting for MJ. It's probably his worst Finals from a statistical standpoint.
By far.
Yet, by default, he's going to get Finals MVP. I don't think there's anybody else here that could.
There's no question about it.
I'm not giving it to Scott after his bullshit.
Yeah, exactly.
34% shooting. His bad back, bad ankle, and every other else that's bad with him.
Yeah.
Kukoc. He's the only guy here to get the award, but it's not the most impressive series from a statistical standpoint, like you said.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt about it. Jordan should have got Finals MVP, but it's just, I just found it interesting that this was his worst, and a lot of people consider this, his greatest season or whatever, and I think it's just strictly because of record and numbers, but not numbers, but record. When you break it, really break it down and go into the season, it's not as impressive as it seems.
Wanted to get Jordan's quote.
Like his 92 or 93 Bulls would have 100% got 72 wins in this season.
I agree. I
think they would have got
second chip year. I think so too.
Yeah,
they were dominant and they played really well, and they had a lot of good guys on the team.
Yeah,
I agree.
Because they had 67 wins that year. There's no way they couldn't have gotten 5 more.
In what many feel is a harder era.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't that long ago. I'm just looking for his. So this is the one thing. So Ron Harper, after the championship, says to Michael, I just got my first one. I'm done. And Michael says, You're done? Nah, this is my 4th championship ring. We have to win 2 more. I need 1 more ring than Magic. Said that in 96.
Need 1 more ring than Magic. Oh, we
Magic got 5.
have to win 2 more. Okay, gotcha.
So
yeah, that was his thing. That was his
the whole reason he came back.
Yeah, he was like, I have to be. But the whole thing, but at this point, people already look at him as the GOAT.
Yeah,
and I would agree that I would consider him so the only contention at this point is Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yeah, I think Bill Russell, but not in the grand scheme of life. Continue.
Yeah, you're just always
no one's thinking about that at this point.
So yes, because it's all right. But I don't make me trigger you, right? But my whole thing with Kareem, and I'm gonna always say this because after in-depthly looking into his career, I just think it's not as impressive as everybody makes it seem. Like he won 5 of his championships because of with Magic Johnson. Sure, he was the best player on the team, whatever. But he played in a whole fucking decade and only won 1 chip and won most of his MVPs there. So that's why I think what MJ is doing at this point is more impressive. And then Magic Johnson having Kareem in his 5 championships matters a lot. So I think at this point, people would be looking at MJ as the GOAT.
Unassailable GOAT.
But I do feel like if he would have stopped here and never won another championship, I think right now, 1, people would be saying Magic Johnson is better than him. And 2, people would be saying LeBron James is better than him.
Yeah, I think you'd have that. I think you're right. Yeah. I do agree with that. I just think.
And Kareem,
sure. Can you even imagine him just being like, "Yeah, I'm done. I just wanted to see if I could do it," and that was it. Just leaves.
Yeah.
Which is what he did it before, which is even crazy to think about.
Yeah,
like
because even that 5, like when he wins the 5th, like that might have squeaked him into like. I think he almost is in that same territory, but like you leave room for someone else in the future because like a lot of people would have probably argued Kobe like with the 5, you know what I mean? Like, but getting that 6 made it so it almost feels
the same thing that happened with Brady and the Bucks when he got his championship there happened with Jordan in the 6, where people are like, "Fuck, how is this guy?"
I think Brady's 6. I think Brady at this point is just like he has his cake, he's eating it, and he's like adding significantly more frosting for no reason. Like,
I think that's why Jordan came back because for that exact reason that you just said Brady is doing right now. I think Jordan in his head was like, I can eat my cake, get the frosting, everything.
Yeah.
But this is my major reason to why I say this. When Jordan's hysterically crying at the end of the finals. Usually there's like footage, there's like music or it's quiet and you just see Jordan crying. Most people who've seen that clip have never seen it with him just wailing like that until The Last Dance. That was the first time you really saw that. But Michael Jordan, when interviewed about it, said, "I was so determined that day. It was like sometimes you get so angry that you cry. That's how determined I was to win that game. I was so angry and so happy at the same time. There was no way I could control my emotions. I was angry because I felt like I had to win another championship before anyone would give me credence to my return. But I was happy that I proved my point. I had loved the game for so long and done so much in the game, and yet I was still being criticized. Once I grabbed the ball and the game was over with, it hit me as to what had transpired. I'd come all the way back." So it goes back to that.
Bitch, man. Yo, like you got a little bit of criticism and you over here whatever, man.
What do you expect? This guy's insane. What do you mean? But this goes back to my point that and that's why I made the argument earlier that he gets his fair share of criticism and he sure as shit feels it. Like that's what he uses. That's what he uses to get him through all the grind. Because we've seen several players in the last 20 years since the year 2000, like after Jordan retired, We've seen these teams that have gone on these extended runs of multi-years getting to the finals, and they all like flame out in spectacular fashion. Most of them. And it's because of that especially if we're talking about the Warriors with KD, for example, they had a hard time finding the motivation every single time to get over that hump, right? Mm-hmm. You were never, ever going to have to worry about that with Jordan. Jordan could go to bed at night, have a dream, and wake up the next morning, turn it into a nightmare, and drop 50. Like, it just makes it up. He just makes shit up in his head. The LeBradford Smith game, for example, where he thought he told everybody that guy said "nice game, Mike" to him, and then he dropped as many points as he had in a game in the first half, and then it turned out that wasn't real at all.
Yeah,
fucking he is going to use all this stuff as fuel for his car to get him to the fucking top of Goat Mountain.
I noticed he needs, and that was like, because I always, obviously growing up, you always just hear how Kobe was like Jordan and stuff. And I just think after, like, really, mainly The Last Dance showed me this, but especially like when doing his legacy breakdowns, like Jordan was fueled by external things. And Kobe was always fueled by like internal motivation. Like whenever they speak, you can hear that from them. Yeah. Like, and I think
there's also famous things of Kobe, like ripping up newspaper articles in public.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. But like, if you listen to like a lot of his Mamba mentalities, stuff,
all
like internal motivation kind of.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and that's stuff that's very interesting.
But we are gonna jump into '97 next, and it's kind of a lot of the same. This run is pretty stupid.
Yeah, it's a lot of the same, just different teams that he beats. It's
fun. It's just ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But 97 will be next.